Who's that? Commander Claw. Who's bad? Commander Claw.
So, welcome back to another episode of Breaking Brews. I'm your host, Commander Claw, and I'm bringing you 5 cards for this Dimir Commander from the Precon Sneak Attack. It is an old commander, I should say, because the Magic world goes by pretty fast, but nonetheless, it is a popular commander. And Anowon the Ruined Thief is, I would say, a nice commander to be introduced into Dimir colors. Here's why. Let me read this. Let me read them. Anowon the Ruined Thief for 2 blue and a black, vampire rogue, legendary creature on a 2/4 body. Other rogues you control get +1/+1. If you never played with rogues before, they're known for being unblockable. And they're usually weak on power, but they have some other kind of ability besides unblockable, and they can get out of control. So, whenever one or more rogues you control deal combat damage to a player, that player mills a card for each 1 damage dealt to them. If the player mills at least 1 creature card this way, you draw a card. Where this card gets uncontrollable, beyond unblockable, is Bitter Blossom, because those fairy rogues that you create on each upkeep are 1/1 flyers. So the more rogues you have attack each player, the amount of cards that they mill, and they deal 1 damage. Then, if they mill a creature card, you get to draw a card. This is a great commander to go against opponents who are creature heavy in their decks. So, without further ado, let me introduce some other cards because we've have the potential of upgrades, because this is 2025 when I'm releasing this video, thanks to Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Let's begin with Outlaw theme. So the first card we have here is Discreet Retreat for 3 and a black, enchantment aura, enchant land. Enchant land has tap, add 2 mana of any 1 color. Spend this mana only to cast outlaw spells or activate abilities from outlaw sources. Outlaws are considered assassin creature types. Mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks are outlaws. Yes, Anowon fits the outlaw theme here. Also, whenever you cast your first outlaw spell each turn, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So for each outlaw spell you play, you get to draw a card and lose a life. That's like a Phyrexian arena. Do not underestimate this ability of drawing a card for each outlaw you play. That is really good outside of draw spells that are in blue. So this is I would say, a must add, just because it's not often you get to add additional mana in the color pip of Dimir. It does have lackluster abilities in mana ramping without using mana rocks. Moving on to the next card. So with this commander, you will be milling your opponents, but you can also use self-mill tactics for yourself. Thinking Mesmeric Orb, which allows everybody to mill cards for each tapped permanent they have in play, just to remind you. But otherwise, this card back in town for X and 2 and a black. It says it's a sorcery. Return X target outlaw creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. Once again, outlaws are assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. So this is good if you're running specifically a rogue theme, but do not fret. We do have cards such as Masswood Nexus that make your creatures that are not on the battlefield all of every creature type. So if you have like a giant Blightsteel Colossus in your graveyard for some strange reason, you can literally reanimate it using Back in Town if it's paired with Masswood Nexus. This is kind of like one of those plays that you need to do once you set up maybe mid to late game, and you can just take advantage of it. Because otherwise, I would say Anowon is definitely a mid-tempo control type of commander. You're going to use counter spells to keep your rogues onto the battlefield, dealing damage to your opponents and milling your opponents, ultimately able to draw more cards to give you that card advantage. Moving on. So I'm trying to tell you, if it wasn't for Outlaws of Thunder Junction, I don't think Anowon would be even above average, right? So let me introduce you to the card Double Down for 3 and a blue, and it's an enchantment. Whenever you cast an outlaw spell, copy that spell. Of course, you're gonna have other rogue types in your deck, right? So literally every time you play another type of rogue, you get an additional one. Reflections of Litjara here on the left-hand side literally does the same thing. You just need to choose the creature type rogues and take advantage of that. So you see here, you're able to put out powerful creatures. All you need to do is change their creature type using Masswood Nexus or staying in the realm of Outlaws. So the unspeakable symbol is a very powerful enchantment because it allows you to buff your creature, and if you use that buff ability on the right creature, you can win the game. So literally for 1 and 2 black, it's an enchantment. All you gotta do is pay 3 life. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And guess what? I mentioned this blighted agent on like every video, but it's just a budget-friendly auto include for players who need some kind of win con, win situation. That's what I encourage a lot of players that are deck building. You need something that can win you the game, besides doing all the fancy stuff or feeling like you did nothing in your deck. So I'm recommending Blighted Agent because guess what? It is a rogue and it's unblockable, so it pairs well with Anowon, the Ruined Thief. Moving on to the next cards. So with Anowon, you're going to need to have game finishers or find ways to find game finishers. And one of my favorite cards here is Memory Plunder. For literally 4 mana of either a combination of blue or black, it is an instant. It says you may cast target instant or sorcery card from an opponent's graveyard without paying its mana cost. Yes, an instant or sorcery from their graveyard without paying its mana cost. It could be one of those Azuri's Predation or some kind of crazy game ending spell to eliminate your opponents. There's a bunch of them. And if you're milling them, it's going to be in their graveyard. This is a mill type of theme commander. You attack with your rogues and you mill your commander. You mill your opponents and you will steal cards from their graveyard. Easy as that. Next up, we have Gaunty Knight Minister from Aetherdrift. So this is 2025 now, okay? February 2025. Gaunty Knight Minister for 2 and 2 black, 3/4 body, Aetherborn Rogue. So it automatically gets +1/+1. It says whenever a player casts a spell they don't own, that player creates a treasure token. Okay, so whenever you steal a player's card and you cast it, you get a treasure token. Next up, it says whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller looks at the top card of that opponent's library and exile it face down. They may play that card for as long as it remains exiled. Mana of any type can be spent to cast a spell. So since you will be going wide with a bunch of rogue creatures, okay, you will be able to hit your opponents, steal their cards, and cast it later on and creating more treasure tokens. That's what we want to do. Gaunty Knight Minister. So what I would like to say is go wide with this commander. Find a bunch of rogues that are low CMC, which there's a lot of, and you can double them up and play accordingly. You got to sequence this type of commander. Early tempo, finish off your opponents with powerful sorcery spells or game-changing type of cards. Moving on to the last cards that show value. Sticking with the rogue creature type, since this other rogues you control get +1/+1 from Anowon, we're saying rogues, 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 rogues. Distant Melody on the left-hand side for 3 and a blue. It is a sorcery. Choose a creature type. Draw a card for each permanent you control of that type. Easy. If you got Bitter Blossom and you got 6 fairy rogues out on the battlefield, you will be drawing 6 cards for 4 mana. That is a great rate. Also on the right-hand side, we have Raise the Palisades for 4 and a blue. Sorcery. Choose a creature type. Rogues. Return all creatures that aren't of the chosen type to their owner's hands. A nice one-sided board wipe. One-sided. And it's actually at a really good rate for 4 and blue. So let's move on to the summary. Thank you for watching this video on Anowon, the Ruined Thief. If you are visiting this channel right now, thank the new sets that came out to give this creature type more support, and that is rogues. Outlaw Thunder Junction has everything that says Outlaws, and rogues are included in that. I think Anowon can actually be a better commander right now, past 2025, with these upgrades from this commander. Overall, is a nice, I think, is a really good early mid-game tempo type of commander, and you finish off your opponents with the big instance and sorcery spells that just do something ridiculous. Either you're stealing your opponent's cards, or you have an exsanguinate, or you got something that just reanimates a bunch of creatures and put them all on your side of the battlefield. Don't underestimate this commander. Kind of utility-ish. So, if you liked the video, like, subscribe. Otherwise, keep in touch with the channel. Thank you for watching. I'm out. Commander Claw.